So I just turned on the Pro Bowl. I want to say that it was an accident. I saw Drake May playing quarterback. I saw one pass, it was a pick six. So I decided to turn off the Pro Bowl. What an absolute joke. The title, just in case you weren't aware, is sarcasm of this video. Big Pro Bowl win for the NFC. They scored what? When I turned it off, they had like 70 points. Maybe they scored a little bit more. It's a flag football game now. I mean, we used to be a proper league, right? This used to be, John Lynch tells stories about it. First off, the Pro Bowl was in Hawaii, which is a lot more exciting than Orlando. No offense to Florida, but Hawaii is a destination, right? And it used to be a tackle football game. And John Lynch has told the story that the players were incentivized to win because there was a fairly large financial reward that went to the team which won the Pro Bowl. And because players and their entire families were all out in Hawaii for the better part of a week, the families would run up quite the bill at the spa and at the various amenities of the hotel. So players were incentivized to go win the game. They wanted that bonus check so they could pay for all the lavish expenses that their families had racked up. That's obviously a bygone era. I wouldn't be surprised if out of the hundreds or thousands of viewers that we have on this video, if only like 10 watched the Pro Bowl. I would not blame you either. It was exceedingly boring. The best part was like a joking interview with Peyton Manning, because I guess one of the teams was coached by Eli Manning, the other team was coached by Peyton. And the interviewer asked Peyton, since you've lost the Pro Bowl 3 years in a row now, does that mean that you suck as a coach? And Peyton said, yeah, I guess it does mean that I suck as a coach. But Kyle Juszczyk and George Kittle were the two 49ers there. And when I saw Drake May, how he made it, his passer rating was 88 this year. Yes, he was a rookie. I understand there's excitement over Drake May. But the guy's passer rating was 88. That is objectively bad. The fact that he is in the Pro Bowl is a slap in the face to merit-based accomplishment in the NFL. Deommodore Lenoir didn't make it to the Pro Bowl. He was the best corner in the NFC statistically this year, at least amongst the cornerbacks that didn't make it, the guys that made it over him. He was a definite snub. And then you got somebody like Drake May, who objectively is significantly worse at his position than Deommodore Lenoir is at his. And you have Drake May in there throwing a pick six, no less, to Byron Murphy Jr. I don't know how you throw a pick six in a flag football game without a physical pass rush, especially on a short pass. But he managed to throw a pick six. The fact that he's in there is an absolute joke. And, you know, I wouldn't go on and on about this if it wasn't tied to money for these players. That was the main thing with Deommodore Lenoir, talking to him in the locker room. One of the points of conversation that we had was, you know, I told him this. It's a good thing that you've already signed your extension, because if you hadn't signed your extension yet, your pay next season would have suffered because you got snubbed from the Pro Bowl. Like, players on rookie contracts, if they make the Pro Bowl, they get a pay bump. And the guys who get snubbed don't. So in the case of it, when it's so unfair, when the selection process is unfair as this one was, it would be cool if it were just fun and games. Oh, he didn't make this stupid exhibition game where they're playing flag football. But it's not just fun and games. There are millions of dollars on the line for guys on rookie deals, which aren't that big, right? So the league has got to do something to fix this. That it was unwatchable. They were jumping into a foam pit, you know, like with these big foam blocks after touchdowns. Kyle Juszczyk accidentally kicked somebody in the chest with his cleats after one of the jumps into the foam pit. I know that I saw some highlights on Twitter that Kyle Juszczyk had celebrated a touchdown with a punt. Yes, he is the 49ers emergency specialist. He was warming up for kicks after Jake Moody went down against Arizona. It ended up being Mitch Wishnowsky instead. But yeah, so we saw that part of Kyle Juszczyk's game. Congratulations to him on making several straight Pro Bowls. Listen, that's all great. The game is still a joke. And John Lynch has talked about the Pro Bowl in a more proper era when the players were actually trying because they had to play for incentive money. Anyway, let's move on to the update right now. Chip Kelly has been hired as the Raiders offensive coordinator. Raise your hand if you remember the Pac 10 of the late 2000s. The Pac 10 of the late 2000s, I wish there was a way to know that we were in the good old days before they were over. The good old days, that was the Pac 10 in the late 2000s. Chip Kelly was the head coach of Oregon in 2009. Pete Carroll was the head coach of USC in 2009. And Jim Harbaugh was the coach of Stanford in 2009. Guess which one of those coaches beat both of the other coaches decisively in that season? Yes, it was Jim Harbaugh. Harbaugh, the coach of Stanford, they beat Oregon and they beat USC in back-to-back weeks. Some of the most exciting football that I can remember. Toby Gerhart went wild for Stanford, and Andrew Luck was their quarterback as a redshirt freshman. Anyway, Pete Carroll, now the head coach of the Raiders, has decided to bring back one of his old foes from those Pac 10 days. Pete Carroll has hired Chip Kelly, who is obviously also the former head coach of the 49ers, the direct predecessor of Kyle Shanahan. I think Chip is a much better NFL offensive coordinator than he is an NFL head coach. I think in general, he's a much better offensive coordinator than he is a head coach. I think that his head coaching tenure with Oregon, that was the peak. He obviously went to UCLA after that. But Pete Carroll is building an interesting staff over there in Las Vegas. He's the head coach. Chip Kelly is his offensive coordinator. Patrick Graham remains aboard for the Raiders as the defensive coordinator. And Tom McMahon is the special teams coordinator. I think, then obviously Tom Brady is in that ownership position for the Raiders. People can talk conflict of interest until they're blue in the face, but he's still an announcer. He's going to be calling the Super Bowl a week from now. Can't wait for that. It's going to be a fun time a week from now. What time is it? It's 5 o'clock Central, 3 p.m. Pacific. So the Super Bowl is going to be kicking off in exactly a week plus about 30 minutes. Anyway, Tom Brady's going to be calling it for Fox. He's also an owner of the Raiders, and he's part of the reason why the Raiders are able to attract some higher profile coaching talent. I mean, that's an upgrade from Antonio Pierce to Chip Kelly. To Pete Carroll. To Antonio Pierce to Chip Kelly might be an upgrade as well. But Chip Kelly's going to be the offensive coordinator for the Raiders. This is a Sunday show. It is happy hour. At happy hour, we like to flip the camera to show you, because we're sitting on the porch, we can show you sunset. Look at sunset, looking really nice. It's nice and warm out here. It's February 2nd, Groundhog Day, right? See if we see any groundhogs. But it's like 60 degrees outside. I think the weather here is much drier than it is back in California. So this is a sunset show, and I'm going to be open to your questions. We're going to talk about the 49ers. We're going to hopefully not talk about the Pro Bowl. That was just the title of the show, so I could go off on how bad the Pro Bowl was. We're going to read to you about Public Rec, who sponsors this show, and we're going to have a generally good time before I go in to eat some red meat. We're having a lot of red meat today for dinner. We're going to be grilling here at sunset. And I'm going to keep the camera on sunset. This show is brought to you by Public Rec. Public Rec, well, they've got the Game Changer pants, the ones that can be worn formally or they can be worn kind of like sweatpants. They're really nice. Usually when you order comfortable pants, you get to only pick from small, medium, large, and extra large sizes. But with Public Rec pants, you get to select the exact width and length that you need. Whether you're 30 by 30 or 44 by 36, you can find your perfect fitting pants. Make your New Year's resolution a comfortable one. No more pants that pinch, tug, or annoy. For a limited time, you can get 20% off at Public Rec by using the code Lombardi at checkout. Just head to publicrec.com and use Lombardi, and you're all set. Oh, and when they ask you how you found them, be sure to mention our show. It really helps us out. Find your perfect fit and never compromise on comfort again. Public Rec, where comfort rules. Look at that sunset. Looks nice. Comfort rules at Public Rec. Look, it got a lot darker since the last time I was on camera. So we only have a finite amount of time to talk. Everybody wants to talk about that Mavs-Lakers trade. Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis, a Packers fan, by the way, at 49ers Packers last year in the postseason. Like this really tall dude is on the sidelines. I'm not used to being shorter than many people. I'm over 6'5", but this guy was significantly taller than me. I'm like, what's this guy doing? It was Anthony Davis once I walked around, and apparently he's a Green Bay Packers fan. But now he's going to be further away from Levi Stadium in case the 49ers do play the Green Bay Packers again in the postseason next year. That would have to be in the postseason. 49ers and Packers are not on the schedule during the regular season next year. What is the equivalent of that trade in NFL standards? I saw a couple people trying to take a stab at it. Somebody was saying, oh, that's like Jordan Love for Justin Herbert or something like that in the middle of the season. Probably would have to involve QBs, right, since it's big names. NBA is a weird place. Lakers always seem to be gifted talent that is still in its prime. Maybe the NBA is struggling as a league, so maybe that's something to help the Lakers out. I have no idea. Dak Prescott and a first-round pick for Josh Allen, says Mike. Yeah, that could be the comp. Could be a good one. So what we're going to talk about, Mike, we're going to talk about Jake Brendel today. What else did you want to talk about? Mike had a couple, Jair Brown and Jake Brendel. Are both of these guys good enough, and will they be starters for the 49ers next season on opposite sides of the ball? While we're at it, the sunset's definitely good enough to make things happen. Take a look at that. Tennessee sunsets. This is Franklin, Tennessee. We can even rotate the camera a little bit, turn it this way, watch the sunset. Hell, I could even walk down there. Take a look at this. I've got the wireless mic. I think this will work. It's golden hour. You guys can tell me if you hear me. I don't know if I'm going to be too tall for this or not, but this is the glory of the mic. I could like walk out in front of it. I don't know what the range on this sucker is, but I think it's good enough to go at least this far. So we're going to talk about Jair Brown, and we're going to talk about Jake Brendel. I'm going to go sit back down since it doesn't make any sense for me to not see questions right now. Did I cut my head off in the shot there, or did it look okay? I couldn't see the screen. Was that good, Mike? Can I stand there and talk? If I can, then I'm going back there so I don't have to sit on the porch. I want to know. So in the case of Brendel, I think that center, and I've talked about this so much over the course of the past year, he's not the same player that he was in 2022. Remember, and you know, a lot of people say that, good, so people say that I can go back down there, good. I'm going to go back down there. We're going to talk a little bit from here. You know, it's so important to remember that in 2018, the 49ers decided to invest heavily in the center position. That was Weston Richburg. And then in 2021, they did the same thing with Alex Mack. So this is a position that's been like a premium investment position for San Francisco over the years with Kyle Shanahan. And you go back to Alex Mack, right? He coached Alex Mack, who was probably the greatest center of the 2010s in Cleveland in 2014, then again in Atlanta in 2016. In fact, when Atlanta turned it up as an offense from 2015 to 2016, I think one of the big additions was Alex Mack. Matt Ryan didn't have Alex Mack in 2015. They were a middling offense. They were a record-breaking offense in 2016 with Mack. So center has been really important for Shanahan. And the reason that it's really important is because around the 1990s, centers started to get a much, much bigger role within these offenses. They started to set the protections, right? So you'd get down in the stance, and as a center, you wouldn't only be worried about blocking the guy in front of you. From the stance, you'd have to be scanning, and it's not easy when you're down this low to see the safety rotations, to see the leverage of the defense, and you would actually be the one that determined which way the play would go, which way the protections would slide. And what happened is it took a lot of strain off the quarterback's plate. You talk to Steve Young, and he'll tell you that the center position, assuming a lot of the responsibility and protection setting for the quarterback, allowed him to play the best football of his career. That's something that the 49ers were able to do in the 1990s. Chris Dahlman actually was the center of the 49ers in the late 90s. That's Drew Dahlman's dad. And we could talk about Drew Dahlman potentially joining the 49ers. But anyway, Alex Mack was Shanahan's center, Matt Ryan center in Atlanta. Shanahan found it necessary to invest heavily in center in Western Richburg in 2018, then in Alex Mack himself in 2021, and then Mack retired. When Jake Brendel first took over in 2022, he played a really good football. That was the best year for the 49ers offensive line that there has been in a long time. Maybe in the entire Shanahan Lynch era, that 2022 season. But Brendel just hadn't been the same player. I'm going to walk back over here so I could sit down on the porch as the sun sets. So Brendel just hasn't been the same player since 2022. And I think this past year was definitely his worst. Brendel had knee tendonitis that he was dealing with in the offseason. And I think that it's time to recognize, and I think the 49ers have, but it's time to recognize that even though center is a super valuable position for San Francisco that Brendel has actually delivered at in the past, he's not delivering at the level the 49ers need to have to truly, truly excel as an offense. And, you know, the one stat that I circle back to is the first down run efficiency for the 49ers was number 20 this year. And I see so many blocks that Brendel is struggling to reach. And those are really tough to reach in this system, but he's struggling to reach them. And I think that's a big part of the reason why the 49ers can't run as well as they need to run on first down. That's not the only reason. They were missing Christian McCaffrey for most of the year. Jordan Mason got hurt as well. So it's one of those things where you're trying to isolate what the problem is, but I think center has definitely regressed for the 49ers. And I think they, given their history, given how important this is, not just to Kyle Shanahan, but to Brock Purdy, to the quarterback position, if Steve Young is saying that center is so important to take something off the quarterback's plate, you have to develop the long-term contingency plan this year. Does that mean that Jake Brendel is going to continue playing for the 49ers in 2025? Maybe. But I think that even if that's the case, get a rookie in there, right? Find somebody like Gray Zabel. We talk so much about the North Dakota State offensive lineman who could play center. Find somebody that you can plug into that center position that gives you a long-term plan. Because this is not a plug-and-play position. I don't remember a rookie ever being able to start for Kyle Shanahan at center. So you better start getting ahead of the 2026 plan and the 2027 plan this year, even if Jake Brendel is your best stopgap option. Now, it's interesting to me that they were able to sign a stopgap option to end the 2024 season. That's Matt Hennessy. He was on Atlanta's practice squad. Hennessy actually was the successor of Alex Mack in Atlanta. And then he was usurped by Drew Dahlman. So then he was relegated to the practice squads. The 49ers were free to poach him off the practice squad. And they said, you know, Matt Hennessy, because of the system knowledge and the fact that, okay, the Falcons saw him as a good successor to Alex Mack, maybe he can develop into a successor for Jake Brendel. Maybe he's got a little bit more upside. The fact that Hennessy was a more highly touted player coming out of college at Boston College, the fact that he's actually started about a season, maybe he can be somebody that gives the 49ers that bridge to the future. Maybe Gray Zabel, maybe somebody else. So I'm interested to see what Hennessy does. I'm interested to see where they go with Brendel. And there's one more player that I think we do need to talk about. That's Nick Zakelj. Nick Zakelj, I don't think gets enough respect for how he pass protected this past season. This was a 6th-round pick out of Fordham in the same draft class as Brock Purdy. They were roommates for a while. They're not roommates anymore. Brock got married, but Nick Zakelj this season in just a couple games held up really well in pass protection, playing on the interior guard, and he's played a little bit of center. They see him as a center of the future. At least they did when he first entered the league. I don't know if the run blocking is good enough from Nick Zakelj to take things to the next level and be a full-time starter in this league, or if he's just going to be a rotational backup lineman. But I talked to him in the locker room after that season finale against Arizona, and Nick said that he was feeling really, really comfortable out there. Just the reps have really helped him. Then there's questions about Drake Nugent, and Nugent I'm not as sure about. One more look at the sunset now. Maybe I could walk back down there. That tree is really nice too. I'm going to walk all the way to the tree. We'll see if we have cell phone reception all the way to the tree. You know, if you guys want me to answer questions, this is kind of funny. I could take the laptop out there. Let's try this. I could actually log into my own stream. And if I do that, then I could actually see the questions as they happen. We're trying new bounds of technology now. This is actually pretty cool. Yeah, Mike, I can't get on the YouTube app since my phone is my camera, but I can do this. I could walk down here. This is going to be picture in picture. There I am. Oh, that is awesome. Wow. That's so cool. So it works. So I can see your guys' questions now. That way we can get both the sunset and the questions in at the same time. With Drake Nugent, he was on the practice squad this past year. The issue with Drake Nugent, the concern has always been a potential lack of size. If he can overcome that and deliver for the 49ers here in year 2 and find his way onto the 53-man roster and start, that's great. There's a reason why they kept him on the practice squad. He was one of the best centers in the country. He was a first-team Big Ten center. He's smart. We know that he can cerebrally handle things. He was at Stanford, then he went to Michigan, and he was the center on a national championship team under Jim Harbaugh. But oftentimes it's arm length in the NFL that holds a lot of interior linemen back. In college, you can get away with it. In the NFL, when you really have to keep those big athletic defensive tackles at bay, it can become a little bit more of an issue. So I know that they like Drake Nugent, who, like Drew Dahlman, is a former Stanford offensive lineman, and Drew Dahlman might be somebody that the 49ers pursue this offseason. But the physical measurements are the physical measurements. And if he cannot become a plus blocker, if he's somebody that's going to get abused in the NFL because he is a little bit shorter than your typical center, that's just going to be how it works with Drake Nugent. So I do think that he's a guy to keep an eye on, but do keep in mind that his measurables aren't quite up to the NFL average at that center position. A lot of people in the comment section here are talking about Gray Zabel. That's cool. North Dakota State lineman. I want to look at some more in this chat. We'll see the live chat here as it's coming. Yeah, people are liking the live stream. I like the sunset. I think this is not bad. I always wonder, like, how far back can I go with this microphone? Can you guys still hear me right now? I'm probably out of Wi-Fi range from my laptop, but I could stand like way out here. Yeah, people are saying don't drop the laptop. People give me a hard time because I like walk through the airport with my laptop in my hand. If I dropped it here like that, then it would be on the grass. I think would be okay. Pavement's right there, so it's a little bit worse. Guys, Drake Nugent was on the practice squad last year. So the fact, and he did earn call-ups, so there was progress made. I'm just, with a guy that was on the practice squad, that was not drafted, who has size concerns, I'm not going to go out there and pretend like he's going to be a shoo-in for the 53-man roster. That's somebody that really is going to have to prove himself this season. Glad that you guys can hear me. Now, why don't you ask some good questions? That is millennial behavior. Holding laptops, especially MacBooks, is very millennial behavior. So why don't we talk about safety right now? Jair Brown, I think, took a step back this past season. Jair Brown was, I don't want to say he was a rookie sensation for the 49ers in 2023, but this guy had 10 interceptions over his final 2 seasons at Penn State. That was the most out of any draft eligible player in 2023. He seemed to have a nose for the football immediately for the 49ers when he was pressed into action in 2023. had the big fourth down pass breakup against Tampa Bay. That was a big win for the 49ers. Then interception in the Super Bowl. I think he held up decently well for San Francisco in that first season. But then came 2024, and the missed tackle rate just went up for Jair Brown. And there just seemed to be more errors than the 49ers would like out of a second-year player, not a rookie anymore in that second season. They definitely were more happy with Malik Mustafa than they were Jair Brown. And Mustafa they're looking at as a fixture for the future. The question now is Brown good enough and trustworthy enough at that safety position, at that second safety position, to roll with entering the 2025 season? Or do you have to draft somebody? Because this all will start going back to, do you draft somebody high up that could start right away? Or do you draft a more developmental player? Even Malik Mustafa, who impressed, it took him a few weeks to enter that starting lineup. So what exactly will the plan be? Because if you're not confident in the Jair Brown role as a safety, and that's such an important position because a mistake at safety might be more magnified than it is anywhere else on the defense, you might have to make a big free agent signing. I know that there are a lot of questions about Talanoa Hufanga. If they can afford him, I think that you do want that backstop back at the safety position, but he's got all-pro pedigree, and he also wasn't fully healthy last season. And we talk about Dre Greenlaw, and I know Saleh wants him back. We talked about that last night. The durability checkbox is a valuable one. If Saleh is on the table, pounding the table for Dre Greenlaw, yes, I think the 49ers can probably get that done and get him back. But will they stretch their budget for two players who haven't really checked the durability checkbox over the course of the past season? Either way, they do need somebody at safety as either depth for Jair Brown or an outright replacement for Jair Brown if they feel that the missed tackles were too big of an issue last year. It's going to come down to Robert Saleh watching this tape for the 49ers and determining, he's going to look and watch and see the 49ers as the number 29 run defense team in 2024. Like, they literally dropped to number 29 last season. And he's going to have to determine where was the biggest lapse on defense that caused the tumble all the way down to number 29 in the run game. Because the last time that Robert Saleh saw this run defense, it was a whole heck of a lot better than it finished up this season. I mean, this used to be a top 5 run defense. He had top 2, top 1 in one of the seasons. So it has really fallen from grace. And then you have to ask yourself, are the defensive linemen most at fault? Are the linebackers most at fault? And last year that would make sense with Dre Greenlaw missing a lot of time. Or is that safety position? I remember the game against the Packers, Jair Brown on the very first game. The Packers run a delay to Josh Jacobs, and Jair just missed a big tackle. And that got the Packers rolling from the very start. Josh Jacobs is a downhill runner, downhill running game. As soon as that tackle wasn't executed in the hole, which it has to be, there's so much pressure on the back 7 and the wide 9. As soon as that tackle wasn't executed, it was all downhill for the 49ers. So if Robert Saleh determines that the safety position was majority responsible for the massive run defense issues, they may have to go out and get a premium safety this offseason. Justin Reed is going to be a free agent. We're going to see him play next Sunday. Speaking of Stanford products, Justin Reed, Kansas City Chiefs safety, is going to be a free agent. So you can look at him. You can look at Javon Holland. He's going to be a free agent as well. He's played for the Miami Dolphins. It's not a bad free agent safety class. There are some names to look at, but you're going to have to play way north of $10 million for one of the guys on that list that is one of the premium safeties. That was obviously where Talanoa Hufanga was headed before he tore his ACL and then tore his wrist ligament. So we'll see exactly where Hufanga lands, but the chance the 49ers would have to stretch their budget to retain somebody like Talanoa Hufanga, and that might not be possible, especially if they're already stretching their budget for Dre Greenlaw. So there are a whole lot of things the 49ers have to fix. I love the top-end A-list talent they continue to have. They still have a robust collection of top-end A-list talent, but it's these players like Dre Greenlaw, like Talanoa Hufanga, who, when healthy, have filled really important roles for this team, whose roles now that the 49ers have to figure out. And if you don't figure them out, and if you don't bolster this defense at the margins in the right way, you're going to run into more of the same problems moving forward, regardless of whether or not you've got a new defensive coordinator in Robert Saleh. Yes, Sorensen and Steve Wilks were not good fits for the 49ers, but there has also been talent attrition that, especially with Sorensen, contributed to the fall defensively this past year that the 49ers are going to have to figure out a way to plug. Got to plug that talent attrition this offseason. Dave says, I think kicking the tires on Joe Flacco, might be worth a look. I think as a backup quarterback, it makes a whole lot of sense. Experience, somebody you can plug in, win a couple games, control the football. I think that's really important. Take care of the ball if you're a backup quarterback. I think that's a really nice point from Dave. I think that Joe Flacco might be somebody that the 49ers consider for a backup QB role that makes $3 to $4 million and fits in the budget. Somebody's asking me for my thoughts on Luka to the Lakers. I thought it was crazy. I keep on thinking of an NFL comp for that trade, and the one that I got was Dak Prescott and a first-round pick to who? To the Bills for Josh Allen. That could be it. That would be a bad trade. I wouldn't give up Josh Allen for Dak Prescott, so it's probably a bad trade to give up Luka Doncic. Somebody has said, you lost me at huge Pro Bowl win. Well, guess what? You lost me at your inability to take a joke. Yeah, I was going to put /S, which means sarcasm, but I figured that you guys would be smart enough to realize that me saying huge Pro Bowl win was sarcasm. Yes, the Pro Bowl sucked. It is a terrible product. I don't know what the league can do. Seems that all the All-Star games are terrible these days. But I was joking when I said huge Pro Bowl win. It was a flag football game. Sorry for the interruption. Let's go back to the sunset. So people are talking about rookies and one of the safety roles. It doesn't make any sense to differentiate between free safety and strong safety, by the way. The 49ers run interchangeable safeties. The league runs interchangeable safeties now. You'll have your strong safety back deep in coverage. You'll have your free safety up in the box. In the 49ers scheme, it is absolutely mandatory that that safety comes down and plays the run. This goes back to the Seattle style cover 3 days where Cam Chancellor was the strong safety, and he was, those were 8-man boxes, and they dared you to throw the ball because they would stop the run. And the 49ers run a lot of the same stuff, but the key is in that scheme that the safeties have to be physical enough, both of them, to interchange and come down near the line of scrimmage. I mean, if you guys want me to talk about how bad the Pro Bowl was again, I can do that, but I figured I'd spare you. If you want to hear about the Pro Bowl and how pathetic it was, you can rewind to the start of this video. I figured that looking at the sunset would be more fun. I mean, it's a nice sunset, right? California, that is a storm. Next weekend, we will be up in the mountains for the Super Bowl. So I'm hoping that quite a bit of snow hits California before I do hit the mountains so we can get some good skiing in. Then back off to the Bay Area. So I think I'm missing some rain out there. We got some good advice in the comments section. This is not directed at me, but I think it's directed at other people in the comments section who might be upset over the Pro Bowl and its results. Stop betting on the Pro Bowl. Chill out. Do not bet on the Pro Bowl. I mean, I would even recommend don't really bet on anything, but that probably will be a comment that falls on deaf ears these days. But if you're betting on the Pro Bowl, that's tough. I didn't even know you could bet on the Pro Bowl. But I think it's good advice from J49. We have any other good questions? I'm going to check the laptop, which, by the way, I did not. Time I'll have an iPad that I walk there and I can look at the either need one of the year. We talked about Jack Brown, we talked about Wendell, hopefully I'm giving good insight there on the 49ers. They might do. Those are two definite positions of concern, center and safety moving forward. Niner Faithful points out that you could bet on anything these days. You could probably bet on the length of the show. There might be a line in Vegas on that. Over or under 40 minutes? What do you guys think? The laptop ruined the Wi-Fi? Really? Oh, okay. I won't touch the laptop then. Here, let me close the stream on the laptop. I had it open to look at questions. Look, it's closed now. I'm holding the laptop. I'm tossing it around. This is probably stuff that I shouldn't do, but I will anyway. Is this good for the laptop or not? The little laptop spin? It's like it's in space. I'm putting the laptop down. No laptops will be harmed in the making of this YouTube Live. Is KJ Wright staying on the staff in the same position, or are they going to promote him? I wouldn't be surprised if they promoted him. I see a lot of people are starting to buy into my idea. A couple of weeks ago, I said, KJ Wright might be the next defensive coordinator of the 49ers after Robert Saleh is gone. Now I see that that's like becoming thought around the 49ers social media ecosystem. I think that he's a rising star, and I think that's why he got the look at the Senior Bowl this past week. I think that he comes from the Saleh, Pete Carroll background, and Pete Carroll just hired Chip Kelly. That's part of our news on this show. It's all interesting stuff, but I think, I've got a KJ Wright story. We're in Buffalo. We were at Bar Bill in Buffalo. That's where they have the really good Buffalo, the Buffalo chicken. So it's crowded with Bills fans. A couple Niners fans were in there as well. It's snowing. And I sit down at the bar. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't see him because just a ton of Buffalo fans watching the early football games. KJ Wright is there. He's like, hey, I know you. And I look over, two guys over, KJ Wright was there. None of these Bill fans, assistant coaches, former Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl champion was in there. But we enjoyed some buffalo wings in Buffalo. That was a good time. Hours before the 49ers would play that snow game in Buffalo. Anyway, KJ, good guy, rising star in the coaching world. Can he follow the DeMeco Ryan? DeMeco Ryan's path means going from linebacker in the NFL to defensive coordinator and head coach really damn fast. That rise happened with the 49ers. Maybe that rise can happen with KJ Wright as well. And it would be nice for the 49ers to have a name in waiting on the staff, like they did with DeMeco Ryans, because they ran out of those names after DeMeco left to the Texans. And that's why they had to hire Steve Wilkes and then Nick Sorensen. So you would love to start to replenish the depth of your coaching staff, so to speak. And it's tough when you've had so much success and there's a brain drain every single offseason. But I think the 49ers can move on with that kind of replenishment when it comes to somebody like KJ Wright. And maybe we will see some promotions for him in the near future. Maybe assistant linebackers coach. He was quality control this past season. Anyway, this was fun. If you bet under 40 minutes, you're probably going to be. I'm going to sign this off with a look back out at the sunset. I know that it's not working as well as it should be, but we're going to flip this around and say, have a great Sunday evening. If something comes up, I will be live again.